Hi, we're Ralph and Lonnie D'Amicus, and we're back again with another monthly forecast for the 2023 Planetary Calendar. And it's always a little good news, bad news, because we're doing December. The good news is that knocks one of the years off the list of confusion for us, because we're often working on the next year. So since 2024 is already done and selling, we're working on 2025, and so we're getting ready to put 2023 to bed now, because we're already into the 2024 season. So instead of living in between 3 years, we have it narrowed down to two now after this month. But it's an interesting month, always a good way to end the year, speaking the obvious. But in this case, we have 3 white circles to look forward to and no black boxes. And so let her rip, Ralph.
A very, very harmonious year, end of the year, which is very nice, since it's been, in some ways, a very chaotic year with all those eclipses and everything.
And that's not to say it's not interesting.
Right.
Just a little more harmonious. Than the year started.
Right. And as Lonnie said, it's a month with mixed messages. This is right from the forecast, so you can follow along. And that's as slowing Mercury enters Capricorn before turning retrograde on the 12th and then backing into Sagittarius the next week. So get your holiday shopping done early, because once Mercury goes retrograde, of course, it's going to gum things up. There's also a quickly moving Venus, which is in 3 signs this month. So when Mercury's like backing up, that kind of communication stuff among family and business, and all, that all gets kind of gummed up. But when Venus is moving fast, all of those social things move along really well. So with 3 signs this month, admittedly in the middle of it, Scorpio, it's going to be a very good month for those social interactions. But it's also going to be a real good month for like internalized social interactions, because it's Venus in Scorpio. Remember, Scorpio is a Mars-ruled sign, but it's Venus in what you call the detriment sign. But what it really means, it means the internalized sign. It means the personal sign. So it's the sign of feminine power, and it's about in your personal life. So that's how you want to use it.
And you Venus-ruled people out there, you know who you are. Be very careful about saying things out loud or digging up some old dirt that you need to clear up before you can sigh a relief for the end of the year. So, remember, you may want to say it. It might be necessary to say it, but do you want to live with the fallout? So.
Right. And a quickly moving Venus visiting 3 signs this month rushes social matters along, as well as commerce. Remember, Venus is also an important business planet. Affairs of the heart may turn serious when Venus is in Scorpio, so be aware of that too. Jupiter and Neptune both turn direct, which is great when those outer planets turn direct, which now is in harmony with Saturn that's now direct. So the economy and the political world will have more juice to move ahead again. Also, though, beware this coming year, because Jupiter will eventually conjunct Uranus in Taurus in April of 24. It's most likely disrupting both climate and economics. Now, we've been dealing with this Jupiter and Uranus in the same sign. Remember, it's Jupiter, the big guy, lots and lots of moons. It's got a real big influence. So being even in the same sign with Uranus, we're getting so many big climatic changes. We're getting big economic changes also happening at the same time. And it's eventually going to be exactly conjunct in April of 24. So be prepared for that. The sun enters, in other words, back up all your computers, among other things, especially your financial stuff.
Wow.
Okay. The sun enters Capricorn on the 21st at the Winter Solstice, followed by a series of supportive aspects between the big planets through the end of the year, describing a time when cooperation and progress are being promoted.
So, that's a lot, right?
There's a lot going on this month.
That is a lot.
A lot. Good stuff and some, high energy stuff.
So you know how I like to look at the void of course moons for all you void of coursers out there. And I just want to point out that this month is following a similar trend to some of the previous months, where most of the void of course moons occur over a period of time that doesn't really impact your workday. They're either before the start of a regular workday, or after the workday has ended. We're talking Pacific time zone. That might vary a little bit. And of course, if you work a different kind of a shift, this doesn't necessarily apply to you. But the one exception is the void of course on Tuesday, December 19th, where that has a void of course period in the middle of the day. Now remember, the moon starts out the void of course in Pisces. So that's an exaltation of the Jupiter. So you should maybe have a little bit of lack of concentration that is similar to what you had for that whole moon in Pisces, but nothing really too challenging. And it's only for about a couple of hours that the moon is void of course, but it is in the middle of the day. And then we have the same sort of dynamic on the 28th, a couple of hours in the late to end of the day, but still within the workday in Pacific time zone, 2:57 to 4:22 p.m. There again, the moon's in Cancer in rulership, so it lessens the effect of that void of course feeling. And I just want to point out for ha-has, look at the void of course moon on the 21st, Winter Solstice, a 3-minute void of course. We should lobby for all of the void of courses to be so generous.
Yes, from Aries to Taurus too. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. Now, be really, very aware of the lunations this month, especially on the 12th, the new moon. And the reason I'm saying that is on the 12th, the new moon at 20 degrees Sagittarius. So if you have anything in Sagittarius, of course, you'll feel it. But also, if you have anything around 20 degrees Sagittarius or the mutable signs, Mercury, Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, 20 degrees, you're going to feel it as well. But especially because on that same day, Mercury goes retrograde. And so Mercury is going to be, changing direction, and there's usually some turbulence around there, and it's all happening at the new moon. So it could be a very discombobulated day in a certain way.
And those parallels will bring in the energies of all that turmoil from Venus and Saturn, because they're parallel. So anybody that's going to have, maybe you have Venus at 20 degrees or something like that, that's going to pull in all those other planets through those parallels too. So it's going to be a bit of a chaotic day, not like the usual low energy of a new moon you would expect.
It's funny. We've had a number of years now when Mercury has gone retrograde real close to shopping season. We've had a number of those, and they tend to be a little bit problematic. So that's why we say really do your shopping early before Mercury hits retrograde, because it can really cause a lot of
I think we escaped it in 2022, but that was unusual. It usually goes around that time.
Yes, exactly. And this is also the time when traditionally it just has to do with the design of the solar system, you might say, when a lot of the outer planets start going direct again. So things start picking up. This is why you tend to get a nice, like after the new year, things start moving along much better.
Well, and you're going to plan your shopping. I'd say plan it for the White Circle days, the 2nd and the 7th. They're two really good days, don't you think? I love the fact that the theme for the 3 White Circle days seem to be trines and sextiles, and of course Mercury is involved in all 3 of them. Of course the Sun, of course, is going to be involved in all 3 of them, and Jupiter's involved in 2 of them. So it's an optimistic, gregarious, get things done, do little errands kind of supportive energy for that period of time. Especially those days are perfect without a lot of other distractions there.
The cool thing too is that that on the first White Circle day, on which mark with a B for the 2nd, you have the Sun trine Moon. The Sun is in Sagittarius, a fire sign, the sign of Jupiter, trine the Moon in Leo, the Sun's sign.
Rulership, yeah.
So it's a very big-hearted, real big-hearted transit. And this trine one, it's when things tend to move along well.
So what you're trying to say is if you do your holiday shopping on the 2nd, you may be overly generous.
Well, then do it for the people you like.
So check with your budget, right?
Yeah. And maybe wait till the next week and that moon is Scorpio, when the Venus is opposite Jupiter on the 9th, to do the shopping for the ones you're less happy about.
Venus or the sun trine the moon may be overly generous, but Mercury and Saturn are watching the pennies. So
That's true.
never mind.
Yes, that's true. There will be a lot of watching pennies this year. That's true.
Right.
So, and then let's see.
We've got some planetary changes and change of direction. You mentioned the Mercury going retrograde on the 12th, right?
Yeah.
And then when I first saw that Mercury changed signs on the 1st, entering Capricorn, I thought, it'd be a lot more fun if the months of December, when you're doing your shopping and everything, Mercury was in Sagittarius. Well, lo and behold, Mercury heard me.
Yes.
And decided that on the 22nd, he was going to get his sense of humor back and back into Sagittarius. So there may be some fun jokes and jokestering happening over Christmas after all.
Mercury always listens to you. That's why I listen to you so well. See? So now in that first week, from the 3rd to the 9th, we have 2 different planets doing things. We have, of course, Venus entering Scorpio on the 4th, but then on the 6th, you have Neptune turning direct. And Neptune's one of the most misunderstood of the planet, and we really are dealing with an issue here where, in the beginning part of the 20th century, a number of astrologers came up with ideas, and it probably happened during the First World War, Second World War, that they should assign signs to each of the outer planets.
Rulerships, yeah.
At a time when they really didn't know very much about them. They didn't know much about them scientifically. They didn't know much about them astrologically because
they hadn't experienced them.
They could look back historically and see maybe what happened at that time, but they didn't have Google, so they couldn't go and see what are all the events that happened in that year. And that's what we do when we do long-range forecasts. We go and we say, well, what happened? And we look at the charts and say, okay, when that planet was there and that planet was there, what happened in that year? And we do research on this, and this is one of the ways you do your long-term research to recognize, this pattern is recurring now. What's going to happen? What can we expect?
What does that mean in modern times when you're bringing it up to date?
And Neptune is, has a lot to do, among other things, with gases. It has a lot to do with energy, but like petrochemicals, gases, and things like that. It has a lot to do with utilities, but it also has a lot to do with kind of our connections. All the outer planets have a lot to do with things that we're all connected through. Uranus has to do with how we're connected electronically. Neptune has a lot to do with how we're connected, through energy, and then Pluto is how we're connected by all the tiny things. In other words, electrons and atomic energy. Especially at the time when Pluto was discovered was at the time when the first modern computers were developed. And what's affected your life more, atomic energy or your computer? Right? It's a balancing act there. So Neptune going direct means that in terms of big economic issues going on, they're going to move forward again. So where people a lot of times are going to be they've been feeling like, the economy is not good, there's been a lot of negativity. As these outer planets go direct, people are going to start feeling more optimistic about it.
And we say that the outer planets are not experienced as personally, but if you have Neptune on your sun or on your rising or something like that, you feel like you've been living underwater for a while.
Yes.
So it's going to be good to get that Neptune moving in a direct motion. Maybe you can see the horizon now.
Right, exactly. And Jupiter, of course, when does Jupiter turn direct? Jupiter retrograde turns direct on the 30th, all the way at the end of the month. So we're ending up the end of the month now. Jupiter is stationing and changing direction at the course of the end of the month. At the same time that Venus enters Sagittarius. So we really end the month on a high note.
Really?
With a great sense of hope, which is nice.
And look at that New Year's Day, 31, up on the top row there, because that's the only place we can fit it in.
Yes.
With that double Jupiter above the number. So the moon is very Jupiterian on that day as well.
Yeah, and so the moon and Jupiter,
full of hope.
Jupiter in Taurus is making a nice trine to the moon in Virgo. At the same time, it's parallel with the moon. So it means it's at the same rank. So it's like ever working in an organization where you have other people who are at the same rank with you. It's the easiest type of interchange because there's not a boss, it's not an underling, it's your colleagues.
A parallel. Mm-hmm.
Parallel, and that's what it means. That's why when there's a really good aspect going on, the parallel emphasizes. I mean, you're really in very good communication. It's a very good communication again between your sense of hope and your emotional body where it's on an even level. It's a very positive day, which is good for a Virgo moon because Virgo moons deserve all the help they can get.
We're really skipping around here
Yes, we
today,
are.
but that's
It's that kind of
that's
month.
the excitement of ending the year.
Yes.
We have some other dates to point out a little bit.
Yeah. I would look seriously too. Right at the lunation, when the sun enters Capricorn, this is the winter solstice, right? And as Lonnie will oftentimes remind me, they always say this, it's the shortest day of the year, but it's not just the shortest day of the year.
It's not the only shortest day of the
Exactly.
year. There are several days before and after that have that same time period. And I have an app on my phone that counts the hours between day and night. And when it hits 15 hours at nighttime, I'm not a happy girl. But as soon as they're starting to build up again on the daylight hours, I am very happy. So,
Which is why I call her the Countessa, because she counts the days. Well, what's interesting is the sun is at. There's really nice aspects on the solstice too. The sun is trine the moon in Taurus on that day, so it's a very nice aspect, and it's the waxing moon, so energy is coming up. There's a nice Mercury sextile Saturn on that same day, so it's the youngster and the grandparent, you might say. It's like the ability to work between that. There's all kinds of nice aspects to the moon, Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn, all on the same day, right? But what's interesting is Mercury's running retrograde, and on the next day, Mercury conjuncts the sun, moving retrograde on the 22nd. And whenever Mercury conjuncts the sun, you have to watch out for things getting fried, or like your nervous system getting a little overwhelmed, because Mercury is going to be, I believe, between the sun and the moon, between the sun and the earth. So it's appearing
between the sun and the moon.
right. I have to look at that, but but that would be interesting. Okay, but nevertheless, at that period, energy is running. Communication energy tends to get really overloaded. So do watch out for that. But these couple of days here are going to be very, very high energy.
Let me say something quickly about while Mercury is in Capricorn, because Mercury is going to be in Capricorn from the 1st all the way through to the 22nd. So one of the things about Mercury in Capricorn is communicating with family,
Yes.
your elders. I see a lot of people talking about reconnecting with family that
Yes.
they've been estranged from, or just have kind of fallen out of their circle or something like that. So it seems to me that that would be a very good time to make efforts, or at least think about
Yes.
balance the plus minuses of instigating that kind of a reunion or something like that. But
That's very,
definitely think about
that's very insightful.
that.
Especially with that fast-moving Venus.
Yeah.
That fast-moving Venus, it means that everything, you can maneuver, especially in Scorpio, you can maneuver that well. You can say, remember, Venus and Scorpio has a lot to do,
Well,
with
that's the other thing that underpins it, that Venus and Scorpio.
how you're connected by blood.
Right.
It's funny, we always tend to view Mars, the planet Mars, as masculine. But the thing that's funny about it is that if you really look at how the planet is defined, there's 6 signs that relate to Mars. There's, of course, Aries and Scorpio, and in the early part of the 20th century, they tried to give Scorpio away to Pluto, the sign of feminine power. They tried to send it out into outer space and say, no, you're fine out there, where no one knows you. But it's Aries and Scorpio, and then the opposite signs, because these are the personal signs, are Libra and Taurus. And then you have the exaltation, which is Capricorn. And then you have the fall position, or the confidant position, which is Cancer. So these are the 6 definitions of the sign. These are the 6 different roles that this planet can play. And it's red. 4 of them are feminine. And if you think about who controls the blood mysteries, it's the women. This is red. It's the red planet. And Mars, in many ways, is more powerful in the feminine signs, and I many times believe that Mars in Scorpio is a more powerful position in many ways than Mars in Aries. So at this time of the year, who usually connects the family? It's from the feminine side. So Mars going through Scorpio at this time is very empowering to women on their personal life.
Well, and I think that whole first week is a very supportive week to do all the things that you want to do. The beginning and the end starts with a square and an opposition, but the whole middle of that week is a very sort of easygoing, harmonious week to sort of make your plans and arrange your situations for your holiday season. I think that the following week, from the 10th to the 16th, is kind of very interesting with all of those parallels, which connects all of those personal planets, mostly are involved in those parallels, connects them in a way that they're not usually connected. So interesting connections there. Let us know what kind of different types of connections you may have felt with brothers or sisters or siblings or, old friends or things like that that are now parallel for, for a little while.
One thing that's very interesting too. Now, if you have the either the digital version or you have the day planner, those both have charts in them. The digital has charts at the back of the lunations, and it's really helpful because you get the picture of the month. And one thing that's interesting, at least here on the West Coast, is that at the full moon, the sun and the moon are conjunct the rising and the setting. So it's very personal to you. It's very much about your personal experience. The moon is conjunct the rising. It's very much about family, and it's very much about your partnerships, these long-time partnerships. So, what Lonnie was saying before about reconnecting, I think is very, very powerful too. It's also interesting too at the full moon, which is on the 26th, this Mercury who is all over this month, does stuff all month long and does interesting stuff, is at 25 degrees Sagittarius, within 2 degrees of Mars, at the galactic center.
Right.
At the galactic center.
So a global view from a very personal lens.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think if we look at this whole month, there are very few strong aspects to outer planets. As I look through, up to Jupiter, a little bit of Saturn, but most, Pluto, there's nothing with Uranus except lunar aspects.
Right.
It's time for you to indulge yourself, Venus, in your own personal power and what you need from your personal family group.
Exactly. Now, also, if you have, the 2020, it is the 2023 we're working on, right? 2023 calendar, and of course you are following it. And one of the things that we added this year was saying that when sections relate specifically to certain signs. Now on J, which is the 27th, it's right after the full moon, day after the full moon, when Mercury's conjunct Mars, the sun is trine Jupiter. It's one of those white circle days. This is what we said about it. This is a lovely but busy day. It has an optimistic but practical Capricorn sun, trine Jupiter in Taurus, while Mercury conjuncts Mars and Uranus makes a supportive aspect to the moon. This is an especially good time for Capricorn, Cancer, and Sagittarius to start projects. Remember to use these forecasts. We put the letters on there so you can go find stuff quickly and watch for this. Now, if you have either the sun or the rising or the moon in one of those signs, it affects you very strongly. When we do these forecasts, we're looking at multiple components in the charts.
It's interesting because it is the most active day that there is, because it's the only day that Mars enjoys a planetary aspect with anybody. The other ones are parallels. So it's really an action day. So use that white circle on the 27th for the action that you need to take. Sometimes white circles are more for the planning stage of some new endeavor, but this one is action. Especially with that sun trine Jupiter there too.
One of the things that's happened with Mars this time is that Mars has been running very close to the sun. In November we had a Mars-Sun conjunction. Now Mars is running very close to Mercury. At the new moon, then when the sun is and the 12th, when the sun is at 20 degrees Sag, Mars is at 13 degrees Sag. So Mars, it's almost like it's like Dad has his and it being in Sag, his son right next to him. The kid staying at home is right there, handy to help him with stuff. So it means that the physical energy is really being
Sublimated.
That's the word. Thank you. Sublimated to the spirit, like to the spiritual energy. You know, it's you're finding that and you will notice this, that Mars is impulsive. Mars is reactive, like Mercury is. Mercury and Mars are both very reactive. But when it's close to the sun tends to make it behave better. It's funny, in Mercury, when Mercury gets close to the sun, it tends to act up.
Right.
But Mars, when he gets close to the sun, tends to behave himself. A little bit like there was actually a thing that came out recently. They found that with young children, if they were with their mother,
they were more likely to act up.
They were more likely to act up than they were actually with their father, or what they were just with other people. Because they wanted that interaction. But Mars it behaves. It's kind of like a kid being out with their father. The father creates a very strong sense of structure, but it also makes them feel safe. And that's one thing you're going to see. Now, when Mars and Mercury are real close together, basically the kids are there. So be aware that like your kid side may be very reactive, you might say, as we get in the later part of the month.
With you, how could I tell?
True. That's true. Now, as we wrap up the year, and we wrap up this forecast, at the end of this, all the way at the end of the day planner, if you're using the day planner, here's the peak at 2024. Okay? In this year of the wood dragon, the global focus will be the legal and political chaos around the USA elections. We write this a year ago. I forget what we write. While Jupiter sextile Saturn promotes a solid economy, American commodities, agriculture, and financial markets will be leading the way. Currency innovation will grow, but bring with it cyber manipulation. Cuba and Florida are facing challenges politically and environmentally, requiring government expenditures in innovation in civic and building technologies, adapting to rising ocean levels. Europe will withdraw into their own affairs, while the Pacific Rim economies will see growth and increased exchange among that community. Well, the way we do these types of forecasts is we put up astrocartography charts for certain significant charts, especially the new moon in Aquarius. It's the C chart. And then we look at the picture of the planet, and we find that this is the most dependable way to forecast. And then we look at the charts, of course, but we're looking at the astrocartography to see how is this going to manifest and where is it going to manifest, and that's what it's based on. So you can read this several times because it certainly took long enough to write. So
I think we jumped around a little bit in the month instead of our usual linear go through, but that's what the calendar's for. So hopefully you have your calendar.
Yeah.
If you don't, you have your calendar for 2024.
Yep.
Come see us at planetarycalendar.com. While we still have some left.
Yes.
We sold out last year.
Yes.
And please visit us on YouTube when we're planning to add some new special features. And of course, we always have the Chinese New Year forecast to look forward to in the beginning part of the year. When is Chinese New Year? You're going to have to tune in and you're going to have to find out. So that's our YouTube channel, Planetary Calendar Astrology. If you haven't subscribed yet, we would really appreciate it. It would help us so much. And then you can hit that little notification bell. And then if we sneak in an extra portrait or feature, you'll know right away.
The new moon, the Chinese New Year, is going to be the 9th and the 10th. The 9th is the actual new moon, and then it's celebrated on the 10th of February.
February 2024.
The beginning of the wood dragon. Something to look forward to.
See you next time. And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year.